Right, we're just waiting for the YouTube stream.
Your audio sounds like it's cutting out a bit.
All right, we are live on YouTube, folks. If any of you guys prefer watching on YouTube and want to switch out, I'm sending the YouTube link in the chat for you guys to switch to. That being said, I recommend that you stay on Zoom because you can ask us questions on Zoom and we'll be more responsive on Zoom. I just know that some people on my team prefer watching on YouTube, so I'd like to put the option out there for anyone else who's like that, anyone else who prefers YouTube over Zoom. But let's get our slides up. Let's get the webinar recording started so that I have a recording to send to you guys after the webinar is done, and we can get the show on the road. Right. Yeah, I think that's our cue to start. So welcome everyone to this webinar about how businesses can increase marketing ROI through proactive customer service. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think this is a unique topic in the world of digital marketing. In fact, when Ali and I were discussing this topic earlier, when we were preparing for the webinar, when we were making the slides, we realized that we had to actually make the connection between customer service and marketing more clear, because they're two processes that you don't generally bring together in the context of a business. You think of them as being separate in most cases. But I think we'll make a pretty convincing case today for why you should start thinking about marketing and customer service as related processes, and how you can actually implement both of them together to increase your marketing ROI. To begin with, though, as with all our webinars, we like to start with intros, just so that you know who we are, so that you know where your information is coming from, what experiences we have that give us the ability to talk about what we're talking about today. So I'm the regular host on these webinars. My name is Arnav. I'm a content marketing lead at TARS. And essentially what that means is I create content just like this webinar to help you get the most out of your marketing stacks. And I'm privileged to be joined today by Ali Wolf, Director of Product Marketing at Benchmark Email. Ali, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
It's great to have you on. And in case it wasn't evident from the previous slide, this webinar is being co-hosted by TARS, which is where I work, and Benchmark, which is where Ali works. TARS is we've been around since 2016, and we've been helping marketers boost their conversion rates using conversational tech, amongst other things. We also help folks with customer service automation, which is related to what we're talking about today. But this is sort of the elevator pitch definition, or the elevator pitch description of what we do at TARS. I think what really underlies our mission at TARS is just the common belief in improving the way businesses interact with their customers. I think TARS was started because our founders didn't like the customer experiences that they were having online, and they wanted to do something about it. They built a tool to help improve those customer experiences. They realized that conversations were probably the best way to have those interactions, and that's how we that's how we got to where we are today. That's how we got the product that we have today. We're joined today by Benchmark, and Ali, I'm gonna hand it over to you to introduce us to Benchmark, because you'll probably do a better job than I would.
Sure. So I actually work with a family of brands. So Benchmark Email, which is the logo you see there, Benchmark One, which is our CRM and marketing automation tool, and Contacts Plus, which is the contact management app. So for these purposes, Benchmark Email is our email marketing landing page platform where we help small businesses create effective, beautiful emails and stay in touch with their contacts to grow and engage their subscriber lists and track their results. So we work with hundreds of thousands of small businesses around the globe. Our product's in 9 languages, and we have offices in 15 countries. And really our global mission is to make sales and marketing just easier, more affordable, and more effective for businesses around the globe. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a perfect complement between the two products.
Yep.
This webinar makes a lot of sense. Now, moving on to what we are going to be discussing on this session, we've divided the webinar up into 3 larger parts. The second part is by far going to be the longest. That's where we're going to talk to you about specific tactics that you can use. But in the first part, we're going to give you a little bit of context about why we're hosting the webinar that we're hosting today. Like I mentioned at the beginning, marketing and customer service aren't really two processes that you generally put together. You think of customer service as happening after someone has converted into a customer, and you think of marketing as something that happens before they've converted. And what we're doing is we're bringing those together in this webinar, and we want to explain to you a little bit what that actually looks like before giving you 5 actual tactics that you can take back with you after this webinar and implement into your businesses to see some of the results that we are proposing that you would see if you brought together customer service and marketing. Finally, in section 3, we will open up the floor to questions from you guys. If you guys want any clarifications about anything that we've said, if you have questions about our products, whatever you want to ask us, you will have access to us in the last 15 or 20 minutes of the webinar to ask us your questions. But we have a lot to cover in the next hour, so I am going to get started with the first section, the context. So this is a question that we asked ourselves when we were making these slides. I actually made the slides and jumped on a call with Ali and Natalie, who also works at Benchmark. And we had a discussion about how people don't generally associate customer service with marketing. You think of customer service as happening after someone has converted into a customer. You think of it as the process of, as you can see over here, offering support to your customers, so they've already converted, that helps them have a more enjoyable experience with you. Now, with this definition of customer service, you tend to restrict the processes that you associate with customer service to the post-purchase or the post-sale experience. So you go through all of the hard work of acquiring new customers. You run ads, you run campaigns, you set up your email marketing sequences. And once you get people to go through that funnel, once you get them to convert, that's when your customer service processes kick in. That's when you start to give your customers the personalized customer service that they expect from you. But what we are arguing for in this webinar is that you should take those same customer service practices that you use once someone has converted and bring them into the pre-sale part of the buyer journey as well. So where you're trying to build awareness for your brand, where you are trying to build interest in your product, where your customers are considering buying your product, and where when they eventually make the buying decision to get your product or get your services, we think that you should implement customer service practices into that part of the buyer journey as well. And we think that that will help you get more ROI on your marketing campaigns as well. And that's really what we are discussing today on this webinar. But before you can accept anything that we say, before you actually try to implement anything that we tell you to, I feel like we need to justify why we are asking you to make this change in the way that you run your marketing campaigns. And I think that a good place to start with, to make this case, is to go back in time a couple of decades, back before digital marketing was a thing, back well before the pandemic, when we used to actually go into physical stores, or we used to call businesses to buy things. Now, what I think was a common thread across buyer journeys, across industries, across verticals, no matter what you were buying, was, with a few exceptions, you would be interacting with a person in the buyer journey. You walk into a bank branch, you walk into a clothing store, there's going to be an attendant there. There's going to be a person sitting at the front desk who's going to walk you through the buyer journey, or direct you to someone else who can walk you through the buyer journey. And if we put this, if we rephrase this in using the terms that we use to describe these processes today, you could essentially conceive of the buyer journey, or you could consider the pre-sale process as involving the same sort of one-to-one personalized interactions that today we normally associate with customer service, something that happens after the product has been purchased or after the services have been purchased. Now, we all know what happens next. We shift into the era of digital. People start getting smartphones in their pockets, increasingly powerful smartphones with increasingly fast internet. And as people get more access to internet, business starts to move online. And one of the perhaps unintended consequences of businesses moving online is that the buyer journey, at least at the top of the funnel in the pre-sale process, becomes self-serve. And what I mean by that is, instead of interacting with a human being and having them guide you through the buyer journey, you are now, as a customer, doing everything on your own. You land on a page, you read up about the company, you read up about their offerings, you fill in your credit card details on your own, or you fill out the lead capture form on your own, and you hit submit on your own. There's no person from the company there helping you get through the buyer journey. And this change was actually great. For a long time, it was ideal for both businesses and customers. For businesses, it was great, obviously, because it increased our reach. We could reach our customers more easily because it's obviously easier to get people to click onto your landing page than it is to get them to get off their couch, get into their car, drive to your store, and walk inside. And for customers, it was easier for the same reason. You didn't have to get off your couch, get into your car, and drive to the store to buy something. You could do it from the comfort of your couch. And for a lot of people, they thought that this was sort of the teleological endpoint of commerce. It was sort of the happy ending at the end. We all lived happily ever after, but that's not really the case. What we're finding is that digital marketing, buying and selling online, is sort of fraying at the edges. And what I mean by that is, specifically, we're dealing with two problems as marketers. One, depending on what vertical you're a part of, what vertical you are selling products in, your customers can be low information customers. And what I mean by that is they don't really know much about the product that they're buying. You can think of insurance customers, you can think of mortgage customers, legal services customers. These people aren't insurance, mortgage, or legal experts themselves, but they are buying these services. And when you're conveying information to customers like that, low information customers like that, it's very hard to convey information through a regular landing page or through regular static content that you otherwise use in the buyer journey, whether that's at the top of the funnel, at the awareness stage, or lower down at the consideration and interest stage. Across all verticals, whether you have low information customers or not, even if you're in e-commerce, even if you're selling products that your customers are well versed with, we're all facing a problem of standing out online as marketers. And what I mean by that is, as people get more used to interacting with businesses on their phones, their standards for what is a good experience are increasing as well. When they have apps like Instagram and Facebook and Uber a few taps away, and they invest millions of dollars in their design to make the experience buttery smooth, you have to sort of live up to that same expectation in the user's mind when you're building your content, when you're setting up your email sequences, when you are building your landing pages. And it's getting increasingly hard to live up to those standards. Simply put, I mean, if you're talking about the top of the funnel, simply put, people just don't want to interact with your text-heavy emails. They don't want to interact with your text-heavy landing pages, and they certainly don't want to fill out your lead capture forms. And the end result of all of this is obviously that conversion rates are poor. If you look across industries, conversion rates tend to be below 10%, in most cases below 5%, which means that 95% of the time, effort, and money that you spend to set up your ad campaigns or to set up your email sequences is all going to waste. It's not really resulting in any actual customers on the other end. And this is where customer service comes into the picture. What we are arguing is by moving customer service further up in the buyer journey, moving it further up in the buyer journey like we used to in the past, you can increase your marketing ROI. And the basic premise of this is that people like human interaction. People like interacting with people before they make a buying decision. I forgot who put it this way, but someone, a marketer once said, people buy from people. So if you can use the same one-on-one personalized customer service interactions that we were using in the past to interact with people and to get them through the buyer journey, you can bring back the magic into the online buying and selling experience and increase your conversion rates, increase the rate at which you convert people from the awareness stage all the way to the post-sale stage. And yeah, I think the last line over here puts it well. People would rather have a conversation than interact with static landing pages or reading one-size-fits-all emails. Now, with that out of the way, actually, I think this might be a good point, a good stopping point to discuss an analogy that Ali and I were discussing over email right before this to sort of get across what exactly we are presenting over here. I think a good way to think about adding customer service to your marketing campaigns, if it isn't clear to you guys yet, is to think about Apple stores as an example, right? If you compare Apple stores to any other store where you walk in and you buy something, it's a very different experience. And Apple's known for its great in-store experience because they incorporate this tenet of human interaction into the way that they buy, into the way that they sell to you. If you walk into most other stores, you walk around, you check out their offerings, and you don't really interact with a person until you check out your product. In an Apple store, on the other hand, the minute you walk in, whether you're a paying customer or not, someone is going to walk up to you and they are going to walk you through the process of buying. They'll answer any questions that you have about what you're trying to buy or sell. They will help you decide which product makes sense for you, if any, and then they will also check you out. So they're providing that customer service to you before you've made the sale. So they are doing what we are arguing for over here. They're bringing customer service back above the purchase into the awareness, interest, consideration, and intent stage. And the tactics that we're going to present to you today are essentially helping you bring that Apple Store-like experience to your digital buying, to your digital buyer journey. Now, the way we're going to divide these tactics up, we have 5 tactics. I'm going to talk about the first 3. They primarily focus on the top of the funnel. And since we focus on conversational tech, they obviously include a lot of information about how you can incorporate conversations into the top of your funnel. Then I'm going to hand it over to Ali to talk about things that you can implement further down in the funnel to nurture people to conversion, to converting into a customer eventually, because obviously the top of the funnel is just the top of the funnel, and there's obviously the rest after. So let's start with tactic 1. This is something that we discovered by happenstance actually at DARS once we built our product, but it's turned out to be probably the most valuable or the most effective way of using our product, and that's making lead capture conversational. So to start out with, what's the problem we're trying to solve over here? Because anytime you're implementing a new tactic, I think it's a good practice to ask yourself what problem you're trying to solve, because there's no sense in implementing something for the sake of implementing it. So I already touched on this earlier, but people don't like filling out forms. Even if you have a short form on your website to capture leads, people are going to drop just because there is a form over there. In fact, I was doing a little bit of research on this. Our customers have told us this as well, anecdotally, but for each additional form field that you add to your lead capture form, your conversion rate can drop from anywhere between 8 to 50%, which is in line with what we've seen with our customers as well. And that really goes to show that people really don't like filling forms. You give them an extra form field and they're less likely to actually complete the process. That tells you everything that you need to know. Forms are literally losing you money on your marketing campaigns. Now, the solution to this is to get rid of the forms altogether. The solution that we are arguing for is to get rid of your forms altogether. And what I mean by that is to replace your forms with a lead capture chatbot. So when you guys were signing up for this webinar, for example, we didn't have a webinar sign up form for you guys, for a lot of you guys, if you signed up on our webpage. When you clicked register for the webinar, it opened up a chatbot in the bottom right corner of the screen, and you shared your information with the chatbot instead of filling out a form. Well, it turns out that that change from form to chatbot isn't actually just a cosmetic on the surface change. It actually changes the way a lot of people view the lead capture experience. Instead of being a one-way static self-serve experience where you read through the text on a page and then you fill out a form on your own as a customer, what a lot of prospects feel when they interact with a chatbot is that someone from the company is taking out the time to interact with them. And that interaction, that seemingly simple interaction of sharing your information, becomes a customer service experience, because there is someone or something on the other end that is taking out its time to talk to you and collect your details. And the results that we've seen from that are actually pretty astounding. Again, this is something that we actually stumbled upon by happenstance years back, but it's become a core of our business. We've helped a lot of businesses do this. What we found is that people are anywhere between 50 and 200% more likely to actually complete the lead generation process, the lead capture process, if you collect their information using a chatbot instead of a form. Now, a good way to think about that is if you want to increase the number of leads you're getting through your ad campaign, one approach you could take is just throw more money at the problem. You could increase your ad spend, you could bring more people to your page. Your conversion rate doesn't change at all, but by sheer brute force, you're increasing the number of leads entering your funnel. But alternatively, what you could do is you could just change your lead capture method to a chatbot, and without increasing your ad spend, without having to spend more money on your campaigns, you can increase the you can increase the number of leads that you're getting for the same amount of effort and the same amount of time that you are investing in your campaigns. The second outcome of this is actually we're seeing that people get better lead quality as well through chatbots. And the reason for that is because they're more likely to stay in the interaction, so you can ask them more questions, more qualification questions. And the end result is that your sales team or whoever's following up on those leads after has more information to go off of when they're following up with them or nurturing them in the future. And as you'll see with Ali's tactics, having information like this is super important to be able to do things like segment your lists and send out personalized campaigns. All right, so that's the first tactic that we have in store for you guys. Make your lead capture conversational. Turn the static, boring form filling experience into an actual customer service experience where you're interacting with your customers and you're talking to them. The second tactic that we are telling you about today is to break your reliance on FAQ pages. So what I found a lot of companies do is their go-to to convince people to buy their product or to convince people to share their information on their page is to include an FAQ section on their landing pages, on their website. And the appeal is, I get the appeal. If you make a good FAQ section, if you know what your customers are frequently asking, you can make an FAQ section that addresses all of the questions that people have before they make a buying decision. And we found that most prospects who land on your pages, who click on your ads, who click on the links that you send them in your email marketing campaigns, they always do have these questions that are preventing them from hitting submit or hitting buy at the end of the buyer journey. And it's your job as a marketer to get them through those questions, to answer those questions for them. And the go-to tool for a long time has been FAQ pages. Now, the issue with FAQ pages is that while they might have the information that the customer is looking for, they're ineffective at communicating that information to the customer. Because I think we've all been there before as customers ourselves, where we've landed on a page, it's directed us to an FAQ section to find the answers that we're looking for, and then we close the page. Or if it's a larger company that has a phone line or has a contact form, you fill out the contact form or you call their helpline instead of actually reading through the FAQ page that probably has the answer that you're looking for. The issue with this, obviously, for the business is that, one, if you don't have that helpline, if you don't have that contact form, you're just losing customers, because if they skip the FAQ page and close out of your page, that's, again, wasted time, effort, and money that you invested to bring them to your page. And the second issue is, if you do have that helpline or you do have that contact form, you're increasing the burden on your human agents to address all of those queries in a timely manner. And inevitably, you reach a situation where you're getting too many calls to your call center for your agents to deal with. The wait time increases and people's frustration grows, and they close a little further down the funnel. Same outcome, but just a different part of the funnel. They're cutting the call instead of closing the page. Now, the solution to this that we have found this is sort of the platonic ideal for chatbot usage, is people implement chatbots on their website that address the exact same FAQs that you would have on in your FAQ section. And essentially what we are arguing for over here is to flip the information hierarchy. So instead of presenting users with a massive list of FAQs that they have to read through to figure out what applies to them, what we are suggesting that you do is you let the user tell you what their question is, and then you map that to the specific FAQ that applies to them, and then present that information to them. In a chat conversation, when someone lands in a chat conversation, you don't show them the FAQs in the first gambit. We like to call it a gambit, but in the first message, you say, "Hi, how can I help you?" The user sends you their message, and then you send them the appropriate information. Now, the beauty of this approach is that, one, again, like I mentioned earlier, when you phrase things as a conversation, people are more likely to pay attention. They're more likely to stay on the page. But two, you're just reducing the amount of text that you're showing your customers as well. Because instead of showing them an entire FAQ page, you're just showing them the answer to the question that they have. And that makes them more likely to actually read the answer to that question. And it makes them more likely to actually get their questions resolved that are preventing them from from hitting the buy button or submitting their lead information with you. In fact, we've seen a lot of our customers do is they incorporate both the lead generation and the FAQ use case into a single chatbot, where a chatbot will address the FAQs, the questions that a user might have, address the uncertainty that a user might have, or a customer might have, or sorry, a prospect might have before making the buying decision. And then after they've addressed that query, they'll say, hey, can I get your email so that someone from my team can reach out to you to give you more information? And that's been an effective strategy to convert people who would have otherwise dropped into actual customers. And the results are what you see on your screen right now. You get an increased conversion rate, obviously, because more people are getting their questions answered on the page. But you're also getting fewer emails and fewer calls from folks, and your sales cycle is shortening because you don't have to spend time responding to people over email or fielding their calls to answer the same questions that could be answered on your web page. So again, this is using conversations, using this one-on-one customer service driven approach in your marketing campaigns to increase the number of people that actually make it to the post-sale stage of the buyer journey. So finally, tactic 3, finally for me, I guess, I'm going to hand it over to Ali after this, but finally in tactic 3, this is more of a mindset that you need to adopt when you are thinking about your marketing campaigns. This is something we tell people when they're building our chatbots as well, is to think iteratively. I think there's a tendency amongst marketers to think statically. We set up our web pages, we set up our email campaigns, and then we forget about them. We let them run on autopilot in the background. We don't really revisit them nearly as often as we should to adjust, to make optimizations in them, to tweak them, when we should be doing that. Because let's be honest with each other, there's no way for us to get the copy on our landing pages, to get the copy in our email sequences right the first time. You need to actually put it out there, see how customers are interacting with it, see if it actually fits their needs, and then adjust accordingly. And also customers' needs obviously change over time. I mean, the pandemic has been a great example of this. The sorts of questions that customers asked before the pandemic and during the pandemic were very different. And you obviously needed to adjust all of the content you were sharing with them, be that your email or your landing page, accordingly to address those questions. And the solution, I think, that a lot of businesses do not implement, that's very easy to implement, is just to listen to your customers. You can collect questions from your customers on your page. So I think about the FAQ chatbot example that I gave you. You could just have an option in that chatbot for users to submit questions that maybe aren't there in your FAQ database. And over time, when they submit questions to you, you obviously don't have an answer to them right off the bat because it wasn't in your initial FAQ section. So you say, okay, someone from my team will get back to you. But what you can do is on a weekly basis, you can make it a habit to check those questions that users are submitting to you. And as you check those questions every single week, you will be able to notice patterns in them. And when you notice those patterns, you can adjust your chatbot, you can adjust your landing page copy, you can adjust your email sequences to address those new questions or those new patterns that you see emerging in the way that your customers in the way that your customers are interacting with you. And the result of that is obviously that you are able to you're able to create content, you're able to put out content over there that's more personalized to the specific needs of your customers, and you're able to more effectively convert them into customers. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ali, who has taken over the screen share, to talk to you about the final 2 tactics that come into the picture further down in the funnel.
Thank you, Arnav. Okay, so, there are a lot of great tidbits in there and a lot that I want to touch on before I dive into the tactics. So I think, the whole purpose of this webinar is to focus on customer service and how it plays into marketing. And I think really all of us as business owners, as marketers, understand that it's so important to provide a great customer experience. No one wants, to get those bad reviews online. No one wants to provide a less than perfect experience. But I think really what the issue comes down to is scalability. And so that's, what Arnav's talking about here with capturing the information in a more conversational way and kind of putting some of that into automation rather than having, one-off people answering the phones or firing off these chats is really what it comes down to. Because if the pandemic has shown us anything, it's that we all kind of need to pivot, and so much is happening online right now. And if you kind of can't automate in the areas that you need to be automating, then you're going to fall behind. So I love the idea that, TARs and conversational chatbots are kind of capturing important demographic information in a way that's not threatening. So you can then use that information kind of further down the funnel in the tactics that I'm going to talk about to customize the experience for users. So for tactic number 4, we're going to talk about list segmentation and personalization. I think, you should, we all understand the value of email marketing, and, it's consistently one of the top 3 lead channels for the return on investment when you're sending your prospects and customers emails. But that doesn't mean that the second that you send an email, a batch and blast email, you're going to immediately see conversions and people signing up like, hey, I want to try your product or service. You cannot be sending, and I'm sure, this is probably beating a dead horse a little bit, but you cannot be sending every single one of your leads the same email. So the beauty of a conversational chatbot is that you have more of that information on industry, interests, behaviors that you can take into consideration in the buyer's journey, as well as, as lead qualifying factors. You can use that information, industry, job title, to meet the needs of those leads. So I think that one of the things you run into is someone, opts in to see a webinar, for instance, someone signs up. Well, that doesn't mean that they're a prospect for my business yet. They may be interested in what we have to offer, and they may have an interest in email marketing, but that does not mean that they're ready to sign up for a demo of my software. It means that we need to really be facilitating a conversation, a two-way conversation, and providing valuable resources that, even if they choose not to use my product, are going to benefit their business. But again, whether you have 10, 50, 5,000 leads coming in a month, it is not scalable to be sending each of these people a one-off email. So the solution to that is that you can be using email marketing automation to segment your email lists based on various differentiators that I talked about, and loop those leads, to tie those leads together that are part of the same industry or the same job role, and you can provide them with the email content and the resources that they're looking for at whatever stage they may be in at the buyer's journey. And the effects of this really mean that you're addressing the pain points of your leads. They're getting their unique interests met and answers to the questions that they may have that they're not necessarily ready to ask you in like a one-on-one basis. But when you're sending a text-based email campaign or more personalized content, it feels like you're available to them to meet their needs, rather than just sending out an HTML email that could be a fit for 50 different roles in a company, rather than the marketer or the accountant who's looking for information. And I think really what that does is it begins to build trust and a brand appreciation. Like, they're more aware of your business. They look to you as more of a thought leader or a subject matter expert when the time comes that they are ready to make a buying decision. And it makes them see you as more of like a go-to viable option when they do decide that they're further down the funnel and ready to make that buying decision. So for tactic number 5, we're going to talk about email drip campaigns, and I touched on this a little bit, but I think all of us can agree that we can't stand the pushy salesperson anymore. The aggressive cold outreach. I can't tell you how many, cold emails I get in my inbox with, alarmist subject lines that make me want to email, and they're complete clickbait. And I think those over the top persuasion tactics that tried to get people to, engage in a conversation or complete a sale are just like gonna basically land you in the spam folder. So people want to make an educated and informed decision before they decide on the brand or service or partner to hook their wagon to. And I think you win extra points for providing that information without an ulterior motive. So for instance, like this webinar, we obviously both work for software companies. Webinars are a great lead tool for us, but I think more than anything, we want to make sure that the people who are tuning in really are getting value out of this. Whether or not you sign up for TARS or you sign up for Benchmark Email, really, I'm just passionate as a marketer, and we want to share these tactics with you so that you can see success with your digital marketing. So the solution to this problem, where they need more information, is drip campaigns, and they allow you to schedule more of a stream of emails that deploy at a steady rate, rather than bombarding them every day, every couple hours. Like, hey, are you ready? Hey, can we get on the phone? Hey, I want to talk to you. And all you have to do is set them up on the front end. So we at Benchmark Email set up a lot of text-based campaigns like, hey, how can I help you? Or, hey, I saw this really interesting article by maybe not even Benchmark Email, another brand. It's just kind of sending out, a steady stream of valuable resources that show them upfront that you are there for more than just a sale. You're a valuable resource and someone that they can trust when they're ready to make a purchase decision. So you can set up numerous drip campaigns at once and trigger them based on actions that the leads are taking. So if they visit your pricing page or they download a resource, and it kind of just depends. We have various different nurture campaigns going on based on where buyers are. Obviously, if someone's visiting your pricing page, they're further down the funnel than someone who might be downloading a resource on, how to build an email drip campaign. So, sending out things like that is going to push people further down the funnel in a more comfortable way than just like immediately hitting them with the hard sell. So the effect of this is that they don't feel threatened by your outreach. You can keep your brand top of mind with prospects and offer them value at each touch point, because these emails aren't pushy or constantly requesting something in return. I think one of the things that Arnav mentioned is like, people are very protective these days of their personal information. They do not just want to give away their email to anyone. We all have thousands of emails coming to our inbox every week. And I think if someone gives you their email, that's a sign that you've made your case that you're something valuable that they're interested in hearing more about. But you have to protect that, and you have to respect that relationship instead of just, making them feel like they're just another number in your database that needs to be contacted. So you need to provide the information that meets their needs, but at a cadence that isn't pushy or intrusive. And so those are kind of the two tactics I wanted to talk about. But I think, just to kind of regroup on everything that we've talked about today, historically, customer service, and as Arnav mentioned, this is one of the things that we talked about beforehand when we were first discussing the topic, because I, as a marketer, have always considered customer service as something that kind of happens post-sale. Like, certainly we have business development reps and our sales team who are providing great information ahead of the sale. But I really love the idea that if you can customize the experience before and after the sale, you're going to see better success and increase customer lifetime value for all of those people that are signing up for your product or service. People want to know what it'll be like to work with your business, and there's no better way to show them that than providing value, a one-to-one experience, but that in a way that makes sense for your business. So it has to be scalable. Obviously, small businesses have limited budgets, but I think with the right tools and the right strategy in place, it's really, really easy to use automation in a way that feels personal and customized to each person who shows interest in your business. So did you want to add anything, Arnav?
No, I was just concurring with what you're saying. I think that
So,
the way you put, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the way you put it on this last slide for drip campaign sort of applies to all of the tactics that we were talking about, and the general trend as well. Just being helpful to your prospects, because that's essentially what customer service is. You're helping your customers, and what we're arguing for is to essentially be helpful to your prospects as well, instead of just bombarding them with reasons why they should buy your product.
Right. You need to show them that their interaction matters to you, and you have the time to spend to make sure that they feel valued and they have their questions answered before and after the sale.
Right.
I think really what we're both advocating for is just a real customer first focus. And I think in the age of automation, it kind of feels easy to let that go by the wayside. I think people are afraid that robots are going to take over and we're not going to have humans, but there's a very, very specific way that you can make email automation and conversational chatbots feel like you're providing that human touch point, even if on the back end it's something that is more scalable for your business and is not taking up the time of your entire team.
Right. Or we have folks like Gary over here saying, "Bring on the robots," which
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that is all I have to talk about, but I love that we are talking about customer service in the frame of marketing, because I think more companies need to focus on that and less on getting those conversions right off the bat.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that for the remaining 20 minutes, I think we made perfect time, actually. We generally like to reserve the last 20 minutes or so for questions. Um, because I find that the best webinars are the ones where you actually have interaction with the audience as opposed to us just spewing information out to you guys. Uh, Taking a more customer service oriented approach to webinars as well, where we actually give you that one-on-one interaction as opposed to just bombarding you with information. So if you guys do have questions, let us know in the chat or in the Q&A. Otherwise, we can end the webinar early, or we can, Ellie and I can just continue talking about customer service and marketing. So I assume that you guys are furiously typing away in the Q&A section right now. We have a comment here from Gary saying that he's interested in chatbots and automation. Glad to hear it. Actually, let me see if I can pull up the contact us slide over
Oh,
here.
sorry, I can switch to it. There we go.
There you go. Yep. So if you want to contact either the folks over at TARS, so me, or the folks over at Benchmark, you can use these contact details to reach out to us after the webinar, and we can continue the conversation over there, talk a little bit more about any of the tactics that we discussed today, how you can implement them into your business, into your marketing campaigns. We have some questions coming in over here, so let's answer them. So, okay. First question over here is from Denise. Is the chatbot product currently part of Benchmark? Is it included in the current plan? So actually, the chatbot discussion was more from our end over here at TARS. Our website's up on the screen right now. If you go over there, you can check out our chatbot product. But what I have found is that the reason we like to host these webinars, I was actually talking to someone earlier today about this. The reason we like to host these webinars with folks who work at email automation or CRM companies is because at the end of the day, all the information that you capture through your chatbot is going to a CRM or an email automation software. So I think it's sort of a perfect fit if you're already using Benchmark to add the conversational element to your lead capture flows, is sort of a perfect complement to the nurturing suite that you have in a software like Benchmark Email. Second question we have from Natalie over here. What are some obstacles that might occur with these sorts of customer service tactics? It's a good question. So I'll take a shot at this question first. I think I can obviously speak primarily about the top of the funnel where you're implementing chatbots. I think that one of the big problems that people face has to do with the third tactic that I talked about having the wrong mindset when they're approaching tactics like this. People watch a webinar like this, they read up an article that tells them they should personalize their customer interactions more at the top of their funnel before the sale. And they think they're going to go implement the tactic and it's going to yield results immediately. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. But in most cases, it's not going to work the first time. And I find that what a lot of people do is they try to implement some of these customer service tactics. It doesn't work the first time, and then they give up and go back to what's familiar to them, what they were doing before. But really, the trick to making these tactics work is, again, to think iteratively. So implement it once, see how it works, see how customers are interacting with it, see whether people like the change that you made or not, see what aspects of the change people liked and didn't like, and then optimize on top of that. And probably after the fourth or fifth pass, you'll start to see the results that you want to see through these campaigns. Anything else?
I agree. Yeah, I think, as with any marketing channel, it is so important to just be testing all the time. We have in Benchmark Email the ability to A/B test subject lines, for instance, and you can test landing pages and see if different verbiage is going to capture the information that you're looking for. But I think one of the things you mentioned earlier in the webinar is a lot of people just put this on autopilot and then they just step away, and that is the worst thing that you can do. I think automation is designed to save time, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be time spent on the front end making sure that you've built something that's really going to get the job done.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think a good way to think about it is that automation doesn't ensure that you don't have anything to do as a person. It just gives
Right,
you more time to focus on the higher level problems that you should be focusing on instead of getting the email into your email marketing software
right,
or doing all of the, maybe not the, I guess the manual work of just setting up uh, these the messaging that goes out. You don't have to. You automation lets you focus less on that and more on sort of the higher level
right,
questions that you should be asking yourself about. Is this wording the right wording? Is this the
exactly.
right value that we're conveying to this segment of customers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Automation is really like the, the execution of the strategy that you have to build.
Exactly, exactly. So we have a question over here from Alvin. All of these are a perfect addition. Thank you. For legacy systems, what would be the best way to tackle and get more efficient in qualifying leads initially? What would be the stepwise adjustments that you could make? That's a good question. In terms of qualifying your leads, so I guess the issue that I think all marketers face at the top of the funnel is you have this dilemma between getting better quality leads, capturing more information about them, and getting more leads. Because
Higher
obviously, the more
volume.
questions you ask people, that's every
Right.
step that you add, even in a chatbot, uh, it's going to result in some people dropping before they reach the end of the lead capture process. I mean, one tactic that you could use to get more efficient leads, like I mentioned at the beginning, with making your lead capture conversational, is to just change the lead capture method that you're using. So instead of using a form, which is what a lot of people do, if you see a 5 or 6 field form that has these qualification questions in it, a lot of people are going to look at that form and they're going to close the page. In fact, what I found is a lot of customers, they procrastinate. They tell themselves they're going to come back and fill out the form, but they're not going to do it right now, which sucks because you, as a marketer, you've invested time and money into bringing that person to your page. So one tactic that you could use is to change your lead capture method from a form to a chatbot. But another one is, again, to get more effective at addressing the questions that people have when they are on your page. You don't have to do it through a chatbot. Whatever you find works for you. Addressing that decision-making uncertainty that buyers have is probably the best lead
Yeah.
qualification tactic out there, because what I've found, what I've noticed when I'm writing case studies and I'm listening to customer calls, is that for a lot of folks, the issue of lead quality sort of manifests itself in the sales process, where sales becomes a lot harder when people still have questions that are unanswered and they enter your funnel. When you're on a call talking to someone, if you haven't done an effective job at the top of the funnel to answer people's questions, those sales calls that you're having, those sales conversations that you're having, become way longer because you have to
Oh
answer
yeah.
all of these basic questions that are already there on your website, and that can get very frustrating if you work in sales, I'm sure. But I'd say that trying to address a lot of that uncertainty at the top of your funnel when people are still on your page can go a long way in helping you qualify your leads better. And the best part about it is, if you're really good at conveying that information and figuring out what the questions that your customers have, what questions your customers have when they're on your page, you can even weed out the people who are bad leads, because if they are able to find information on the page that tells them that maybe this product is not for them, then they won't
Right.
share their email, they won't get onto that sales call and then leave further down the funnel after wasting your sales team's time. um, yeah, that would
Yeah.
be my tip.
I think even with, even if you don't have the more sophisticated tools that are like kind of, building on a conversation intelligently behind the scenes, um, it it's the number one thing you can be testing is like your messaging and positioning. So if someone comes to your page and it's unclear to them, I mean, we suffer from it as well. Like, we're an email marketing tool, but I can't tell you how many times people come through and they're like, I don't even know what I filled out. It's a form. It's like they just put their information in, they see an ad, they think it sounds interesting. Well, it's really comes down to like making sure that you're attracting the right people. So maybe you're looking at the channels that you're using to drive leads to your site to begin with. And then once they get to that page, making sure that you've put together the information that's really going to address their pain points and help them reach that aha moment even before they've opted in to hear more about it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we face similar problems, and we're guilty of
software problems.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question over here from Jessica. Hi there. What are some examples of data I should be capturing from my chatbot or forms to help nurture contacts and provide a good experience to customers? Well, I think that the set of questions that you ask is going to depend on what you're selling.
You're offering.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to depend heavily on the vertical that you are selling in, but there are some best practices that we have arrived at that can apply to most verticals in terms of what you are asking folks. Some of those best practices are, don't ask for, this is just in the ordering of details that you ask for. Obviously the specific details are going to be different across industries, across verticals, but don't ask for information that's too personal right off the bat. I've seen this happen in forms. Yeah. Don't ask for information that you don't need. Absolutely. But I've seen a lot of people do this in their forms and in their chatbots, where they will ask for the most personal detail about a person in the first question, and it makes no sense to me. So for example, people who work in financial services, sell insurance or mortgage, don't ask them for their credit score. Don't ask them for their income in the first message.
Right. It's not a chat. It's more of an interrogation at that point.
Exactly. Ease them into it. Don't ask for the important information too late, obviously, because same issue with forms. You don't want them dropping before you get the information that you need. But ease them into it. Ask them a couple of easy questions at the beginning. Name, email, phone number. Even that email, phone number, people are reticent to share nowadays. So ask them some qualification. Show them that you're giving them value before you ask them for the stuff that you actually want, which is their contact details. So take the example of mortgage or insurance as an example. Ask them a couple of questions. Ask them for a couple of details that you need to create a quote for them first, so that they feel like they're getting value from you. And then give them, once you've given that value to them, once you've maybe given them a quote estimate, or one thing that a lot of folks do is they'll collect the details that they need for a quote and then say, hey, I've prepared your quote. If you share your email with me, I'll send you the details on your quote. Now over there, you're not just asking them for their email so that you can bombard them with emails after. You're asking them for their email so that you can actually deliver value to them immediately after the conversation.
I also think in terms of forms, it makes sense, like you said, it varies depending on your product offer or service offering. It also, needs to match up with your persona. So it's like, if you know that you're driving leads through a Google Ads campaign, that you've targeted this specific group of people, like just capturing the bare minimum information you need on that demographic information that you can then throw into like a more customized resource email drip campaign or some other sort of outreach that's specific to their interests or behaviors, I think is what you should be capturing.
Right. Absolutely. These are great questions, guys.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question about internships over here. All right, we'll answer those questions separately. That's not really the point of this webinar.
Gary says, I was thinking of automation in the sense of gathering information that helps to better connect with prospects and address their needs. And I think that using these types of tools in tandem, so, capturing the demographic information and then using email drip campaigns or using segmentation and personalization in your email automation is really what's going to help you connect with them on a more personal level and address their pain points.
Right. And you absolutely have to think about, I don't think you can think of either tool. I think the reason, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, the reason we like to host these webinars with folks who like Benchmark, who do the drip campaigns or do the list personalization further down in the funnel, is because you can't really think of either of these forms of automation in isolation from one another. You can't segment your lists and run drip campaigns on those segments if you don't have the information captured in the first place. And at the same time, if you go to all the effort of creating a chatbot or implementing whatever tactic you need to address people's questions on your landing page. If you don't do anything with that after, then there's no point in
exactly
implementing it in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a question over here. Do you let customers know they are speaking with a chatbot, or do you try to appear to be an actual person? Honestly, I think most people understand that they're talking to a chatbot in most cases. It's usually evident through the sorts of input UIs that you have when you're responding with a quick reply. People usually know that it's a chatbot. I'd say that in the vast majority of cases, though, people are very explicit about the fact that that they are talking to a chatbot, that the customer is talking to a chatbot. They'll say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, this company's virtual assistant," or "I'm so-and-so, this company's chatbot assistant," and people are fine with that. It's the way I like to put it to people is what's really at play isn't necessarily even any fancy AI or all these other buzzwords that come into the conversation when you're talking about chatbots. It more has to do with the interface. When people see a chat interface, they're primed to think of the interaction as a conversation, and that's really what changes the outcome of the interaction versus something more traditional like a form or a landing page. Even if they know that what's on the other end is just a piece of software living on an AWS or Microsoft Azure server somewhere.
I also think it's more of like the immediate gratification. Even if they're talking to a bot, they know like, hey, I can get my question answered a lot quicker if I reach out to this bot.
Exactly.
But the beauty of a chatbot is, yes, I'm always, of the impression that I'm talking to a bot, but they can connect you to someone. And that's kind of where it saves your team time. Like, hey, I can't answer your question, so I'm going to connect you to an agent, or I'm going to connect you to a live person on our team who can answer your question.
Yeah, that's sort of the gold standard, I think, of delivering that front end customer service to people on your landing pages is having both the automated option and the human option. The issue is when you use just one, and the reason is, the reason both make sense is because what we have found is that when people click onto your landing page and they have questions, but I want to say around 70% of the questions that people have are one of 5 super repetitive, super easy to answer questions. And the remaining 30% are slightly more complex and probably need a human being to help answer. But it doesn't make sense to hand that bulk 70% queries to your human agents and waste their time with that. So the ideal division of labor is you let the chatbot handle all of the repetitive questions that people have, get those people out of the queue as quickly as possible, and then hand off anyone who has a more complex question to a human agent. And the beauty of this approach is that it reduces the burden on your human agent. So your wait times aren't as long because they're not swamped with these repetitive queries that they need to answer, and they can focus on the questions that really need their expertise. All right, I think we've answered all of the questions in our queue over here.
Great questions.
Yeah, these were great questions. Thanks, guys. I'm going to close out this webinar as slowly as possible, just to give you guys the opportunity to get in any last minute questions. But thank you guys for joining. It was an absolute pleasure hosting this for you guys. And thank you, Ali, for co-hosting.
Absolutely, it was fun.
Yep, it was. A couple of logistical points before we close out the webinar. We will be sending you a recording of this webinar after it is done. We'll probably add a couple of more resources in the email as well, again, to be helpful to you guys and be more proactive in our customer service to you. We'll add a couple of resources in the email to help you learn a little more about the tactics that we spoke about, both on the benchmark side and the TAR side. You can also check out the recording on YouTube. So since we stream this live on YouTube, if you go to the TARS channel, the recording should be up almost immediately. I think, one of my colleagues over here shared a link to the YouTube live stream. If you go to that link after we end this recording in a couple of minutes or so, YouTube will process it and put it up there for you guys to check out. If you guys want to show it to your friends or family, I don't know why you would, but if you do, it's there on YouTube for you to show it to them. But thank you guys for joining. You guys have been a great audience, great questions at the end, really substantive stuff. And I hope to catch you guys on our next webinar next week.
Thanks, Arnav. Thanks, everyone.